Erin and I want to start with a really big, heartfelt first bite thank you. We have been so encouraged by your kind word, your messages, your glowing reviews of First Bite. This has been a labor of love for the last year and a half, and we are grateful for y'all being on the First Bite journey with us and supporting us because we work full time and this is a full-time gig on top of it. And we do it with joy because we understand that the world of early intervention pediatrics needs evidence in it. So we sweet talked the folks with speechtherapypd.com, and as a thank you giveaway, we have come up with a free pod course subscription. So once we hit 130 iTunes written reviews, we're going to pull another name out of the hat, probably with the assistance of an ever so handsome goose and a bear. And that person will get a free pod course subscription. So over 175 hours of continuing ed plus 19 new continuing hours each month. And there's a new episode every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every other Thursday, and the short course, 9 series long, All Things Ethics with Elise. And that's our way of giving back. So thank you. So please keep the reviews coming. We only have a few more to go, but once we hit 130, then we will pull that name out of a hat. Happy 2020. Thank you for joining us on the journey. And seriously, y'all rock. Thank you. Hey, so by now, I'm hoping that you've heard about the brand new pod course subscription that Speech Therapy PD has rolled out. For $79 a month, you get over 175 hours of ASHA continuing education with 19 new episodes a month. That's fantastic. Well, they want to make sure that you also know we have a brand new coupon code. So the coupon code is F as in first, B as in bite, followed by the number 20, FB20. And that brand new coupon code will give you $20 off the pod course subscription. So you get 175 hours of continuing ed plus an average of 19 new hours a month, all for $59 a year. And we cover everything from early intervention to schools to adults to ethics. So be sure to type in F as in first, B as in bite, and then the number's 20. Enjoy your coupon, or as my kin folks say, enjoy that coupon. Hi folks, and welcome to First Bite, Fed, Fun, and Functional, a speech therapy podcast sponsored by speechtherapypd.com. I am your host on this nerd venture, Michelle Dawson, MS, CCC, SLP, CLC, the All Things Peds SLP. I am a colleague in the trenches of home health early intervention right there with you. I run my own private practice, Heartwood Speech Therapy, here in Coletown, South Carolina, and I guest lecture nationwide on best practices for early intervention for the medically complex and fragile child. First Bite's mission is short and sweet, to bring light, hope, knowledge, and joy to the pediatric clinician, parent, or advocate.
By way of a nerdy conversation, so there's plenty of laughter too.
In this podcast, we cover everything from AAC to breastfeeding,
ethics on how to run a private practice,
pediatric dysphagia to clinical supervision,
and all other topics in the world of pediatric speech pathology. Our goal is to bring evidence-based practice straight to you by interviewing subject matter experts.
To break down the communication barriers so that we can access the knowledge of their fields.
Or, as a close friend says, to build the bridge.
By bringing other professionals and experts in our field together, we hope to spark advocacy, joy, and passion for continuing to grow and advance care for our little ones.
Every fourth episode, I join in. I'm Erin Forward, MSP, CCC, SLP, the Yankee by way of Rochester, New York transplant who actually inspired this journey. I bring a different perspective, that of a newish clinician with experience in early intervention, pediatric acute care, and nonprofit pediatric outpatient settings.
So sit back, relax, and watch out for all our squirrels and enjoy this geeky gig brought to you by SpeechTherapyPD.com. So today's episode falls in the fun and functional categories. And it's going to be a hoot because today we have Mr. Morgan Mitchell, and he's the senior recruiter for Elevation Healthcare. And I just love him to pieces. Probably because we've basically spent the last several Valentine's Day inadvertently together at the SCISHA convention. And bless his heart, him and his sweet coworkers, they always bring roses for each attendee. And if you haven't picked up on it by now, I am a sucker for flowers. So Morgan and his crew for the win. It really does. Morgan, it's those sweet little moments like when we walk around the corner and there you guys are passing out flowers from, what did you have this time? A mop bucket?
That's correct. That's correct. A nice red mop bucket found at 6 in the morning on the CVS cleaning aisle right before SCISHA got started.
That's perfect. Wait, and the best, y'all, the lovely CVS attendant was so worried that Morgan was going to give his girlfriend roses and a mop bucket. What did she encourage you to get something different?
Yeah, she was very concerned. It was the day before Valentine's, as you mentioned. And I walked in, I asked if they had any sort of vases, anything that I might be able to use to keep the flowers good, all day long. And she said, no, check the cleaning aisle, put the bucket on the register. And she goes, you're not giving your girlfriend flowers in this bucket, are you? And I said, no, ma'am. But she was very concerned about that. So I appreciate her looking out for me.
Yes, as did all, 600 or 700 females in attendance that you guys
You
gave
guys
roses
like flowers. You guys like flowers.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to rock a SCISHA. See, I'm not just pitching SCISHA for no reason, folks. You really should come join us for a convention. Okay, so anywho, we have basically inadvertently spent the last several conventions together. And when I am away from my Pack Dawson family, that little something pretty, it picks my spirits up when I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. So thank you, Morgan.
You're welcome.
Okay. So to squirrel number one, ladies and gents. Okay. So to get us back to why we're actually here today, it's because I wanted to tackle something that has always left me curious and in a conundrum. And it was simply, it's 400 questions, but what is a contract job really like? Is it a job of last resorts? Are all contract folks just headhunters out to make money on me? Do I really count? Would I be valued as an individual? Would my skill set be valued? And in short, when I was coming through, it was just that general feeling of, for job hunting. And I have had several friends actually take travel jobs to start a new chapter in their lives, and they have loved every minute of it. And I'll be honest, I have secretly loved following their Instagram post of all their amazing pictures when they're off on their adventures. And some of these folks, yes, they do end up moving every 3 months, but others have stayed in some of their positions for years. And others have shared how much they absolutely love crushing their student loan debts by doing a contract position. And we have all heard some of the horror stories that some of our other friends have experienced. But let me be perfectly clear. None of the horrible experiences that I have heard have ever occurred from any of my coworkers colleagues that have taken positions with Morgan and his crew. And it's basically all sunshine and rainbows when it's over there because they're based out of Charleston, which is basically the Paris of the Southeast United States. So literally, sunshine, rainbows, maybe a hurricane. There is a concern for earthquakes, but sunshine. So we've all heard about the stories on the rumor mill, and we've also all heard really good experiences. But I wanted to get some insight from an inside man and Morgan and his roses. And did I mention that they have an office puppy? you seem like the perfect guy to talk to. So Morgan,
You
hello.
do. Hello.
Yay.
And
How I have so many questions. Like, how did you get into doing this? But like, can we start with the puppy? What
we
is
can
its
start
name?
with the puppy. So, Mally is our new office dog / mascot, and our coworker Robbie likes to duck hunt, among other things. But he was looking for a breed and made his mind up on a standard poodle. So Mally, the standard poodle, has entered our office. Certainly part of the team. What's it, Thursday? She's been in the office 4 days now. So she's new to us, feeling us out. We're feeling her out. I know Robbie's not slept much this week. So it's been good. We're happy to have her in the office with us.
Okay, so that's basically like a newborn. Is Robbie a dad? Does he have children?
Robbie is not a dad. So I think this is, he's had dogs before, obviously, but Mally is new and young and likes to pee everywhere.
Yes. So Robbie, you now are responsible for the next round of carpet cleaning. just say.
We'll be offering carpet cleaning supplies at Skisha next year.
Yes, that's it, to go with the mop bucket. Oh, that's gonna win you some ladies right there, is what that's gonna do. Oh my God. Okay. So how in the world did you get into like hiring contract folks? Because y'all do more than just SLPs, correct?
That is correct. We work with a number of different disciplines, PTs, OTs, psychologists, for example. I would say that speech language pathologists make up one of the disciplines that make up the majority of our company, but also in terms of the most in-demand discipline. Roles I am trying to fill. The majority of them are also for the speech language pathologist. So we've been in business for about 14 years now.
Okay. I knew it'd been as long as I'd known you, but I've been in South Carolina 7 years now. So, yep. Okay. So you're from Columbia. So you're a Colatown person.
I am.
And you transplanted to Charleston via how, where?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. I found my way to the College of Charleston and knew rather quickly that's a place that I was looking to stay for the foreseeable future of my life. I am not a clinician. I do not have a therapy background personally, and really, frankly, came upon our agency via a classic networking story. My coworker Robbie, who I mentioned previously, and I both served on a board through the College of Charleston. At the time, I was representing the student perspective, Robbie, an alumni, and I ended up interning with Robbie and our owner, Stan, while I was wrapping up my degree. Worked hard and was lucky enough to be brought on board full time after I received my degree. And I'm coming up on a 7-year anniversary with Elevation now.
Nice. Oh, I love that.
Classic
Folks,
networking story.
Yes, absolutely. And folks, this is why volunteer work, advocacy, board engagement, I mean, you never know how it's going to turn around and bless your own stars when you're in the process of advocating for others. So,
and in your job search, perhaps.
Yes. I that's very true, because most of us know a guy who knows a guy, or a girl who knows a girl. Sure. And life. Yes. Okay. I always wondered. That was general curiosity. And so now we know all about is it Mally or Mallory?
Mally, as in short for mallard duck. Mally.
But it's a poodle. Do they actually duck hunt?
They're actually, I can't speak from personal knowledge, but Robbie is pretty thrilled and has done plenty of research on duck feeds. So.
Please let him know all I could see when I saw that was my kid sister's poodle when she was a little girl, and she named him Fluffy, Pierre, Scruff, Bubba. And we just called the poodle Bubba for short. Well, I mean, it grew up in White Oak, Virginia. We were all happy the poodle had all of its teeth.
I got you.
Oh, bless. Okay. All right. So here we are. All right. So where do we begin? Because I have so many different questions, but how... If somebody's looking at going into a contract job, how do they actually differentiate employers? Are all companies the same? Where do they start?
Sure. That's a great question. And are all companies the same? How do you differentiate them? It's tough. There's a ton of companies out there, and there's a lot of different options available to clinicians, to speech language pathologists, not only in terms of companies, but obviously settings. And I know you have experience working in a number of different settings. So, in terms of differentiating, employers, first and foremost, in anyone's job search, you need to do some soul searching. It's about where you are in your career, what your interests are, what your needs and wants are. So, just to throw a couple of examples out there, there are corporate companies, there are public companies, there are private companies. A corporate company, in my mind, is a large multi-brand agency out there. In my mind, a public type of employer would be the schools, DHEC. Perhaps you're working in a state-run hospital system in your various states. Private employers, that would be the private clinics, perhaps, maybe the private practices of the world. Heartwood Speech, for example, I would include in that.
Private practice, yes.
Sure. Private agencies such as ours, available to job seekers out there as well. So there's a number of different ways that you can, I guess, differentiate, measure, and compare the different types of employers, out there available to you.
Okay. Folks, when you're going through this and you're actually looking out at the different positions, I would suggest when you're looking for a new job to do, and as Morgan was saying, the soul searching. I would suggest looking at the pros and cons of what you want. Because when you're looking at a public entity like the public schools or DHEC, a lot of times those hours are set in advance. And when you're looking for a new position, oftentimes it's work-life balance. For anybody listening, if you are in the process of, well, hopefully not in the process of procreation, but if you are in the process of growing your family and or are pregnant and you've never done this before, let me be completely honest. You will never miss as much time from work as you do the first 3 to 4 years of that tiny human's life, because they catch all the things, because out of nowhere, your children are randomly licking walls. Trust me, it happens. I have seen my own kids do that. And you're like, what are you doing? And then in light of the coronavirus, also squirrel, I saw on the news where Corona beer sales have actually dropped because people have mistakenly assumed that by drinking Corona beer, you're going to get the coronavirus. And I'm like, ooh, we really need to work on literacy in America. But that's a conversation for another day.
Sure, different podcast.
Yes, different podcast. But those are factors that when you're actually looking into the different entities, I would start there. And on that note, I did just hear that certain states are actually enacting for state and federal employees. Certain ones are actually getting mandatory minimum 12-week maternity and paternity leave, which is, all of the new mommies in the room are like, yes, but probably not going to find it in a private practice. I mean, because that's a significant amount of overhead.
Sure.
Some insurance policies will cover that, but those are when you're looking at private, public, those kind of things. Just some thoughts.
Absolutely. Okay. And kind of to expand on that, there's a number of, like I've mentioned, a number of different things to consider, when weighing options, when weighing pros and cons. And, when it comes to actually evaluating, employers, I think, first off, questions. Ask as many questions, come prepared, with good questions, to allow for you to kind of get that information. I think things, in my opinion, that would be important for me when comparing, that I would be inquiring about, turnover. What is the therapist or clinician turnover, with this agency, with this employer? Is there a
I have
recruiter?
never asked that, and that's a really good question.
Sure. Why is the role available? Has this been created? Does someone pull their hair out and leave because the caseload's 70 and above the state limit, whatever the case may be? Recruiter turnover. Whom are you speaking with? Why are they in their role? How knowledgeable are they? I think that can be something that I think can factor into a job seeker's decision. Having said that, what about administrative turnover? Is there a new clinic director every 12 months? Is there a new special education director in there every couple years? Has the special education director, if it's a school-based role, been there for a while? Those are some things that I would be asking of potential employers, or at least trying to do my own research on. The culture at the various employer or setting, that position that you're looking into, that hiring process, the onboarding process.
Okay, I have a question about
Sure.
that. Okay, so when I was working as an SLPA-ish in Virginia, I replaced a SLP that had been there for, I think, 3 years. She was phenomenal. I mean, all I can think of is the poor job that I did in replacing her, because I was still going to grad school and I didn't know what she knew, because she had her C's and she was knowledgeable and she was
new to the world.
Yes,
Sure.
new. Yes, but I mean, we all survived, so go team. But I wondered when I was replacing her, because she was in a contract position. I don't know who she worked for, but I just know it was a contract position. She said that the contract company that she worked for was great. The school she had been in previously, not great. And then the school that she was working in, that I actually kind of took her job, it was wonderful. It was a little slice of heaven. But when you're looking at work culture, that's something that I was afraid of, because she encouraged me to look at a contract position, but because I didn't have my C's, it was not a viable option. And I did look, but I'm concerned about, like, what if there's a disjointed work culture? What if with the contract company, there's a healthy, positive work culture, but the place that you're sitting and working in is toxic? Because, I mean, it's not in the same physical building. So how do y'all support, like, how should a contract company support that clinician? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And, I think what's important when evaluating employers is, their relationships, a third party employer, their relationships with the clients. If I'm working with a clinician in one particular school district and they enjoy working with me, but they've not had a good experience in the school building walls, for whatever, the reason might be, what sort of network does that employer have available in that area? I think that would be something that you could be asking about, in terms of setting yourself up for a potential move if need be, if that makes sense. And, it's not always cut and dry. It's not always to where you can, what is reality? It doesn't always work out like you want it to. And sometimes it's not necessarily evident, in just an interview process. So there's some external, I think, evaluations that while you are assessing potential employers, that might allow for you to have a more well-informed, I guess, idea of what you might be getting into. And that, would include online reviews about that agency, perhaps public image. May I speak with a current or former employee in the same district, for example, or clinic, for example? What kind of growth opportunities, might be available there.
Wait, stop. That's another question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when I just yelled stop. I'm sorry, I got excited. So, like, that's another question. Like, within a contract company, that's been something that I've always wondered about. we are, and I'm gonna pull a stat here. Everybody, please make sure that you're looking at the careers.asha.org page. There is a ton of research on this page. So it's careers.asha.org. There's a couple different ones. There's supply and demand list. There's a salary and wage data. See, this is why I don't do artic and phonology, because I can't say the words. But a lot of people worry about the upward growth and mobility. So just as a frame of reference, and I'm assuming that there's going to be a lot of new potential CF candidates listening. So I'm going to take a second to like tailor this to you. All right. On the website, ASHA does a health survey for salaries every year. Well, basically like every other year. So the 2019 survey said that the median student debt for SLPs in healthcare, if you get an annual salary, the median student debt is $40,000.
Right.
Okay. The median salary of all of the participants of, and this is the health one, this is not the schools one. I'll have to go back and pull the schools one. The median annual salary was $78,000. Sounds fantastic, but for years of experience, for a fresh SLP, it's around $66,000. So that's 1 to 3 years. When you hit 19 to 21 years, you're looking at a median salary of $100,000. Please note that is across the nation. And you can anticipate that, like, when you go to the Midwest and to the Southeast, those numbers drop because of cost of living goes down. Okay, so that's and this this analysis is great because it actually goes through and what I have found is that as a profession, and maybe it's just because we're predominantly female, and Morgan, this is just me kind of talking outside the box, but like we don't always educate our colleagues and our younger clinicians about how to lean in and ask these questions, which is why I'm so grateful that like you took the time to do this, because we have to build each other up. But is there upward mobility within a contract company? Because when you're looking at those numbers, like, how does that work?
Sure. That's a good question. And, you kind of mentioned something that, my goal really today was kind of to, share information that I thought was, critical for, obtaining the position that you really want. And I feel like, especially the younger clinicians, perhaps recent graduates, even if you're a couple of years out and maybe just not navigated very many job searches previously or compared them, this is kind of the information that I feel will, help equip you for, that. So I do definitely feel like as you become more seasoned as a clinician, some of this information you'll be exposed to. But, when you're in graduate school and you're getting all this technical knowledge that you need to go out into the world and be a great, clinician, navigating the job search and comparing the pros and cons of the different types of employers, that information is not given to you in graduate school. And there's not really a one-stop shop resource, in my opinion, to, compare and contrast all of them. So, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think some of this information might be better geared for some of the, younger clinicians. As far as growth, opportunities within, agencies. I think it would kind of depend upon that agency, to be honest, kind of how, they are set up. I would assume that some of the larger kind of corporate type employers might have a little bit more available, in terms of, growth opportunity versus, a mom and pop shop, small employer, privately owned, or perhaps a private practice where it's, one clinician and maybe they have a couple, independent contractors working with them, for example, might not have that same growth opportunity available, So I think that kind of comes with, the comparison that we mentioned previously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because so don't discredit upward mobility within a contract company.
Sure.
Bottom line,
Mm-hmm.
there are options, but smaller company, not as many opportunities. Larger company, more opportunities.
Sure.
Perfect. Okay. And I found the survey. Okay. Hold on. That's a different page. The 2018 ASHA school survey.
Okay.
Remember, this is median, not
Right.
mean,
Right.
because this is hysterical. When you hear the numbers, you're going to be like, oh, that's amazing. The median salary for working 11 to 12 months across the nation was $72,000 a year. And everybody's like, ha, 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 ha. Because the average starting salary for a school-based SLP in the state of South Carolina is the same rate that a teacher makes. And the starting salary, I believe, is $33,000, maybe $32,500. So that's slightly below. California has the highest median academic salary for a year of $85,834, but it's California, so it's not going to go too far. And the median hourly wage for a contract employee in the school across the nation, if you worked full time, is $50 an hour. But again, that's across the nation. So geographical differences. So I think they're going to do a 2020 survey, because I think the way ASHA does it, they do a 2018, or they do an even year for school analysis and an odd year for a private practice medical analysis. So, but people, the data is there. So what Morgan's getting at, when you go in with your data, go in knowing your worth. And a good contract company is going to embrace those questions.
Yes, absolutely. And like I touched on previously, questions, in order to make the best informed decision, for yourself. And, those numbers that you touched on from ASHA, the school, compensation data, it's always fascinating for me to see, what ASHA says and what the standard is, obviously ASHA being the standard, and what I see on my end. And, that 72,000 annual, median number, that is higher. That is higher than the highest pay scale for clinicians, and I'm just talking about masters. If you go higher in your education, that would change things. But that 72 number, that's higher than the highest pay scale on many of the adjacent states to us in South Carolina. The Southeast.
Yes, it is.
72 sounds great, but you need to be in LA or whatever, like you talked about.
But you would not. I mean, if $72,000 a year in LA, and you would be living in a shared room,
right? That as well.
I'm sorry, we bust our butts, and when you actually sit down and look at the data, it's kind of like, well, that's depressing and alarming.
Well, that's another thing, when you are, entering the job force, or, coming out of graduate school, or maybe you just want to make a setting change, is, I'm not saying money is everything, but, the schools, I think, have a little bit less, not retention, but a little bit less, financial flexibility than maybe if you are working directly for a hospital system, per se. I know the medical setting is typically compensating pretty significant amount more than, let's say, you're, completing your clinical fellowship in the schools and have to abide by those state mandated experience pay scales.
Yes. Okay. So then I have like so many questions.
I know,
oh my
there's
stars.
so many layers to this, and an hour is not enough to cover everything.
Okay. At the end, please make sure that if I forget, I'll go ahead and do it now. If someone has a question and they want to reach out to you directly,
Sure.
How do they reach you?
Sure. Email is always best. I'm happy to talk with anyone as well. But if anyone would like to contact me, I'd love to serve as, a sounding board just to answer questions about job searches. I'm specifically working with schools, so school-based contracts. If you want to ask me questions and you come to the determination that, an agency is not what you're interested in, that's not going to hurt my feelings either, So feel free to contact me via email. It's Morgan, Morgan, at elevation, ELEVATION, healthcare.com.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. And remind me to do that at the end. Okay. So then another factor, something that I never did when I was first starting out, because I was honestly so intimidated in the job hunt process, like, because I awkward turtle. I have so much social anxiety when it comes to talking to people in public, which is really funny because I do this all freaking day, but like I do. And interviews make me really nervous. But how would you recommend an applicant go about um, asking for or stressing that they need assistance with student loan debt or ASHA dues or state licensing fees? Like, we want to assert ourselves in the job market and assert ourselves as candidates, but like it's scary. So, suggestions.
So, in terms of, some of the things that you just mentioned, I would be asking potential employers about benefits available to employees, not in terms of insurance benefits, but do you reimburse for materials? Do you reimburse if I want to attend the SCISHA conference and it's XYZ amount of dollars to attend? Do you have any sort of CEUs available through the company or reimbursable? Those are certainly questions that I would be asking of any employer that I'm potentially considering, working for.
Okay. So that's standard practice. Like, we should be doing this, but it's so much easier said when you're practicing in a mirror than when it is when you're sitting at that table with them.
Sure.
Okay.
And that's a normal feeling. I would stress to anyone listening that, an interview, when you are being asked questions by hiring authority, across the table, they're evaluating you as a clinician, as an applicant, as a job seeker. I always suggest that those interviews, it's a 50-50 measuring, if you will. So you can ask them questions that are appropriate. And I really think most questions, obviously you can be inappropriate, but anything in terms of what you're looking for position wise, go for it. The worst that's going to happen is they give you an answer that's maybe not favorable for you, or you get a no. That's the worst thing that's going to happen. So feel free to ask, may I speak with a current or former employer? Because I'd like to hear about their experience working with you. I'm curious about the culture. Ask them that. If they say no, you got a red flag. If they say yes, well, they're probably pretty confident in the experience their employees have or have had previously. So, ask those types of questions. What do some of your best therapists do to make them stand out? You have an understanding then of how they decide who to hire. What's it take to be successful here? Is that company vested in your success? If you're asking that question, how is success measured? Is it by training? Is it evaluations, performance?
Productivity.
Sure, productivity.
Yes, that's a big one. Like, does the company have a written productivity level, or do they have an unwritten productivity level? Because if y'all watch them unwritten productivity levels, because that's where the class action whistleblower lawsuits are winning, especially with a lot of the new regs out for nursing homes. There have been some major findings in some of the SNFs because of I can't remember, it was a rug change or something. I don't know. I don't work in the geriatric world, but there's been several rehabilitation companies that were sued, and the whistleblowers won their cases because of unethical productivity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And to kind of follow up on that, when you ask how is, success measured, you get the answer to that. Well, would you help me set these goals? Would you help me get there? Basically setting yourself up for, is there mentorship available in this role with this company at this position? And that goes into the growth. That goes into moving up within the company. So if they have mentorship, then that would, yes. Sorry. And lastly, you get answers on those that are favorable for you, that you like, and you want to keep obviously the conversation going. But after that, what happens when I meet those goals? you're already setting yourself up for, a promotion or salary increase, or perhaps just knowing what to do to get there while you're even in the interview process. So you can really obtain a lot of information, by asking, the right questions. And it's not necessarily always about money. How do I earn more responsibility? Talking about the growth. I'm telling you that I'm vested in this company now because all these answers have checked out for me as the job seeker, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes. No, it does. And I mean, you've been in it for 7 years. SLPs tend to be a little type A. I mean, there is a type B SLP Facebook page, which cracks me up because one of my dear friends is a member of it. But I am definitely not a type B. But
I've not seen that. I'd be curious to see that as well. That's funny.
I think that's a hoot. I'm like, I've never met a type B SLP. Okay. All right. This is just me, and I don't know if it's me I don't know if this is nosy, and Morgan, you can tell me if I'm being nosy because you know me, but how does a school district or a hospital system, what happens behind the scenes in setting up contracts? Because that's the part that I've always wondered about, because I've seen some of the places where folks are hiring and I don't want to live there. So how did those contracts come to be?
Sure. That's a good question. So I don't have a whole lot of experience on the medical side of things, the hospital side of things. I've typically, and kind of what I've gathered coming from our owner, Stan, who did work with different settings prior to us, just kind of finding the niche of the school-based contracts, kind of felt like there was more value to being a direct employee, with the hospital systems. So I've not got a whole lot of experience setting up contracts with them. None, frankly. School-based, however, felt like there was a little bit more value. I think the schools offer probably the most favorable of schedules, no afternoons, weekends, et cetera. We talked about some of those pay scales previously, and contracting allows for a little bit of flexibility on the compensation front, in the school. So kind of found a little niche. To answer your questions, or answer your question about, maybe this is a school district where I'm not really interested in living. Well, that school district's probably one that does need the outside help. That school district might be rural, or perhaps, just an area of the country where there aren't, new clinicians moving to frequently. And, some of the smaller school districts, maybe there's only a handful, maybe one or two, depending on, the speech needs, within that district. And you have someone retire and no one's moved to that area. Well, now they're using outside resources to hopefully attract clinicians to that area. But, as far as, why or how, all the school districts, when they're short staffed, they're going to look at all the resources available to them. So it's not uncommon for several different agencies to be working to fill one role at one school district. So that's not uncommon.
I didn't know that happened. I thought it would just be with one contract company. They send out to multiple contract companies.
Yes. Yes and no. I think I was just going to, kind of say that, if you're a school district and you need an SLP yesterday, caseloads are going up, we're falling behind evals, little Johnny's not been seen yet, whatever the case may be, they're going, who can help me right now? So of course they're going to use all resources available to them, which I understand. Now,
yeah, because they're out of compliance for the IAP, which is a legal matter,
right,
for them, in addition to tiny human falling behind.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure. And, it's not to say that every contracted position is some desperate last minute, oh my gosh, we just need a body. It's not saying that by any means, but, the school districts, they'd always prefer to have district folks. That's always their preference. We understand that. It's unfortunately not a reality for most school districts out there to be completely fully staffed, related service provider wise. So of course, they're going to use all the resources available to them.
Okay. What about is it a non-complete or non-compete clause?
Non-compete clause. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So when the school district that I was working in as an SLPA-ish,
okay.
Gotta love that. I asked the woman that was leaving, I was like, how come you just won't come work here?
Right.
And she said she had a non-compete clause.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Put my L's in the wrong spot. What is that?
Sure. Good question. So a non-compete clause is typically entered into a contract. And again, I'm just speaking from school-based contracts.
Yes.
Entered in there to, I guess, disallow for a contracted SLP to work directly for that school district the following school year. And I can explain.
Yes, that's what she said.
Right. I can explain why our agency implemented that. We had a clinician working with us, and she was having a good experience with us. She was having a good experience at the school district she was working within and serving. And a new special education director came in and explained that in order for you to return next year, you have to be a district employed SLP. We are no longer going to employ contracted clinicians. So if you want to stay here, you need to become a district employee. Well, she liked it there. She liked the area. I believe she had kids in the district at the time. It made sense for her. Okay. Well, the following school year, first day of school, new director during the summer comes in, and first day of school shows up the following school year, and there are new clinicians on staff via a different agency because that school district wasn't able to fill all of their vacancies over the summer. So she took a pay cut, frankly, and at that point didn't really feel like the district had been transparent, and honest with her. So that didn't sit well. So that's why we've implemented that for us specifically, really for the protection of our employees, so that they aren't forced into district employment or direct employment if that's not their preference, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. Because she was, it was interesting.
Was happy, the need was still there, and she didn't feel like it had been a transparent conversation with her, at that point.
Yeah. No, well,
and obviously, if something were to, an opportunity or a situation were to present itself, and it made sense for all parties involved, and that's not going to be something that I would think that most reasonable employers would stay in the way of.
Yeah, no, because grace and kindness, we all want to receive it, so we should all extend it.
Sure.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so this just gets me back to the moving thing.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my girlfriends did this. She's actually an OT. She's a phenomenal OT. She taught me one, to shut up, and two, wait for a latency period. So I love her. And she very much, y'all, Crystal's a goddess, and I love her. And she helped me handle Boo Bear when he was a tiny little bitty human. And now we're working through our zones of regulations. Morgan, have you ever heard of the zones of regulations?
I've not.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. You don't have tiny humans of your own yet, do you?
Oh, no, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. So zones of regulation is when you're happy, you're a green. When you're not happy, you could be a yellow. When you're really not happy, you're a red. And we've been doing that with Theo. And the other day I was like, honey, you're a red. I'm going to need you to be a green. And he goes, I need to go to yellow. I just need to simmer. I was like, all right, baby.
He's got simmer over down. He's got a secret down.
Oh yeah, he knows. But he also knows he needs to remove himself from the situation, simmer over there. And then when you're green, you can rejoin the family dinner, but chill. But this is what happens. My children get hangry just like their mother. Low blood sugars are legit. Okay. But when my girlfriend Crystal did it, she for her contract, she got into the contract. She loved doing the travel.
Mm-hmm.
But she was in for 3 months, and the facility asked her to extend for an additional 3 months. She said, absolutely. Her company that she was contracted with said, absolutely. At the end of 6 months, or when she was coming up on the 6 months of being there, they asked her to stay for an additional 3 months. And the contract company that she was working for said no. And I was like, but you're happy. And she was like, I know. And she was happy where she was. And the facility, the physical building she was in was happy. So that's one of those sticky wicky situations that I've always worried about, with contracts, what is the role and responsibility of the employee and the contract company owner? You see what I'm saying? give guidance, please.
Sure. Well, travel therapy is kind of its own animal, in my opinion. We did that a little bit previously, and we were running that same problem. I'm trying to fill a role that's only 3 months long, and I'm trying to find a top-notch clinician for it. And now all of a sudden, I don't have any work for them after 3 months. So we were running into that a little bit, which was tough. And as far as employees, responsibility there, in our eyes, if employee is happy, I'm going to do everything I can to make that work. I'd be curious as to the why that third, I guess, 3-month assignment wasn't allowed or granted, or if all parties were good there and the need was still there. I'm not sure why that wouldn't have worked out for her.
That's exactly, I know. That's what we kept coming back to. So she ended up just leaving the contract company and taking a permanent position elsewhere. But it really stunk because she was happy, but it just kind of, yeah.
Sure. And that is kind of looping back into what I said about asking questions and kind of evaluating that and understanding the terms of employment, and understanding the duration of the contract that you're looking into. And some folks like that flexibility. I speak with folks every now and then, about our services, and my contracts are typically a 12-month school year calendar contract, and they're going, no, I want to be somewhere new in 3 months. So kind of going back to the soul searching point that we talked about at the beginning, perhaps someone is comfortable with going from California to the Arizona desert and into Texas, and, they're just kind of going along with it. So, kind of dependent upon the job seekers, needs and wants, like we talked about.
Itchy feet. That's what my dad calls them.
Itchy feet. Yeah. Yep.
Itchy feet. Yeah. Because whenever we get restless, when your soul is restless, you need to get up and move. I mean, for us, it ends up meaning tall trees in a lake somewhere. But sure. I mean, everybody's got their spot, right?
Right.
So, okay. There was a couple resources that I wanted to give out. Y'all, before this episode, I was at a little one's house because we're called to go where we are called to go, and they were they smoke a lot, and when you work in home health, this happens sometimes. But I actually had to Febreze myself, including my hair, because I couldn't quite catch my breath after the Newport. So if I am breathy today, I apologize. But que sera. I also almost got stuck in a mud hole, but that's
rainy in South Carolina today.
Rain in South Carolina and dirt roads. Yeah. Okay. So on the careers.asha.org website, they actually have a determining the salary calculator. And I know I have said this multiple times before, but you want to know where your ASHA dues go? Well, then actually get on the ASHA website and check it out. They have listed here a calculator, how to what to ask for. They again break it down by geographic location. They have, I like this one, they have best places to live, and a Sunshine and Rainbow City that I know in the southeast part of South Carolina is on there. But they also have something that's a really cool on there. It's a PDF. It's called the Supply and Demand Resource List for Speech Language Pathologists. And it talks about potential growth. And this is a fantastic quote. An additional 41,900 SLPs will be needed in our career field to fill the demand anticipated between 2018 and 2028. It's a 27% increase in job openings, which gets me back to a point that we've made in other podcasts. If you are not a clinical supervisor, please pay it forward and be a clinical supervisor, because we have a funnel effect right now where we have more applicants into the grad programs than we have schools, then we have more students than we have clinical supervisors. And now we're on this massive demand, which gets me to the next question. When you are doing a contract position, one, do most contract positions accept clinical fellows? 2, are there set guidelines? Is it common to have set guidelines for clinical fellowship support? And 3, this is a lot of questions. I'm sorry, Morgan. Can you be a clinical supervisor and still work a contract position?
Sure. Good questions. To answer your first one, I would say that most agencies do accept clinical fellows. I would say that, for us personally, it is kind of dependent upon the school district that we've partnered with, and their needs. There's a couple different ways that we can kind of work around. Let's say they don't have a clinician on staff available or time available to supervise. There could be something, perhaps we go and find a clinician in the area or compensate someone on the side, that sort of thing. Personally, our preference, we would always prefer if a school district and we had a clinical fellow, and this would be certainly figured out before anyone signed any papers or agreed to the contract, et cetera. But, having someone who works within that district, you'd be surprised at how adjacent school districts in the same state operate differently, different leadership styles, different special education directors' thoughts on certain things. So having a supervisor, a clinician who's familiar with the people, the protocols in that district. Hey, I've got this problem. Who do I go to? That's always our preference. We feel like that is of most value to the clinical fellows working with us or even within a school district itself. So that's kind of our thought, I guess on that. I would say that we don't, but maybe some of the larger kind of corporate agencies that we talked about earlier in the podcast, perhaps they have some sort of CF supervisor program. I know some of the larger companies actually have someone who travels around and supervises all the various CFs in a particular area, which is could be a good thing. That person's probably very seasoned, that clinician rather, probably very seasoned and familiar with supervising. But, that's kind of different from what I just spoke about in terms of I'm a CF, I'm in the schools for the first time, aside from perhaps a position while I was in graduate school. And my CF supervisor is not only in the building, she can't talk to me until Thursday. Well, guess what? I have a pressing issue now. So,
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm just like, yes, because my clinical fellowship, my CF supervisor, bless it, she showed up once every 3 months to sell me Mary Kay.
Right.
So I bought a ridiculous amount of Mary Kay, which made my face break out. I was actually allergic to whatever ingredient was in some of the products, but I bought a lot, right? Because my CF was dependent on that. But that's okay. But folks, that's it. When you're going into this stuff, you're allowed to ask those questions and get a straightforward, honest answer. Okay. And just to debunk another myth, a lot of people are afraid that if you start a CF somewhere, and if it's not a right fit for you, that you have to stay for the duration of your clinical fellow. I failed as a clinical fellow mentor, not once, but twice, because on the first go around, about 2.5 months into being a clinical fellow supervisor, I got put on emergency bed rest for Theodore. And I was only 5 months along. So that kind of went kaputs for the rest of the pregnancy. So you can change clinical fellow mentors. The second time, she ended up leaving the small private practice and taking a contract job. And Mika, if you're listening, I adore you. I adore your pictures. And as soon as I saw her smile from her heart on her Instagram of her doing the 3-month travels, I was like, that's what she needed.
Yep.
She found her niche. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the most beautiful things to see, because every time I follow my former students, I follow my pupils, and it brings me joy to see them finding their calling within our profession.
Sure.
And that's so cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yes, you can change. And there's a ton of resources on that. But yes, so please, everybody check out the supply and demand, check out the determining your salary. There are, if you get on that website, careers.asha.org, they have jobs listed available, and a lot of them are contract positions. So, be sure that you go through and, you can post a job, you can find a job. There are those resources there. Also behind the scenes, and in case you did not know it, you can contact ASHA directly, and you can get guidance from them. That's what they're there for. God forbid you're in one of those positions where you're a CF and you didn't answer today, but you can't reach your mentor till Thursday. They have, you can call and they have actual lines for help for medical or for school-based clinicians, and you can post a question to them.
Sure.
And so that's a really good resource there too. Okay. We had all of our questions at the start of this, but we have gone in like 1,400 different directions, and I love it. We have 4 minutes left. So with our 4 minutes left, what would you recommend for anybody considering a contract position, regardless of if they're a CF or if they've been at this for a while? I know I have one friend that just did it because she's an empty nester now, and she was like, I'm retired. I'm going back as a contractor. I was like, cool. So what recommendations do you have?
My recommendations, if you are not familiar with agencies or not sure who to work with, I would recommend having several conversations. Maybe not every.
With different.
Yes. Several conversations with different companies, different recruiters. Go out and, pick a handful. I would not talk to all hundreds out there that do similar work. But,
there are a fair few.
There are a lot. I would go have several conversations. I would find a recruiter who knows what they're talking about. I would find a recruiter who has connections to an area that you're interested in living in. I would find a recruiter or an agency who could actually provide value to you in your job search. You'll be able to quickly pick up on who's been doing this for a little while, who's knowledgeable. I would seek transparency in everything. If they can't talk with you about where they think they can pay you, and I'm not saying that they need to answer with immediately, yes, we can pay XYZ pay rates. But if they're not really into that conversation, if they're setting you up on an interview where you're not sure which district or which schools you're going to be serving or what the caseload numbers might be, or really any aspect of the position you're not gotten an answer to, I'd be wary of that.
I have a question on that. Sure. I have a question to my question. When you go to interview, so say you find the contract company that works for you,
right? Do
you then get to interview the school district or those people directly as well? Or is it, no, this is your school?
Sure. Good question.
Sorry, squirrel.
When I am, I kind of work two angles. Job seekers come to me, clinicians, hey, I'm looking for XYZ position, and I go out and find it. School districts call me, hey, Morgan, I need an SLP. Here's the caseload, position, school served, so work both angles. There's always going to be a conversation for us between the school district and the clinician. I just help to facilitate that.
Okay. And one other question to the question, sorry. Does it have to be full-time or part-time? Can you do part-time work as a contractor?
Sure. There's definitely part-time work available out there. I think there's probably an FTE in the school world or hours per week.
Full-time employee. Sorry. Translate. Right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes. Sorry. There's all sorts of different durations, hours worked, et cetera. And I think any job seeker will be able to find, what they're looking for, in my opinion. Now, having said that, as a school-based contract employer, I'm not really going to be able to provide anyone hours in the evenings or weekends. All my folks are working in the schools on a regular bell schedule. So, that's something.
What happens during the summer?
So go ahead.
Yeah, if they're a contract employee during the summer, do they not get paid?
That's correct. And really the short answer for that is, I'm billing the school district for speech services. And if the employee or clinician is not physically at school providing those services, I can't bill the school district. Thus, I can't, compensate, our employee in that situation. It sounds, oh my gosh, 3 months without a paycheck. I've never done this before. That can be intimidating. I think just hearing it But, I would also remind a clinician that, sure, the numbers that we talked about earlier, what was it? The 33,000 average starting, in the schools or
Salary
around
to
here.
work in the schools.
Right.
Yeah.
That number, if you're working on contract, should be significantly higher. So you're being paid more over 10 months. So, hopefully you've been able to put some
Budgeted.
away. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And then there's also the summer schools options
Sure.
for folks to contract through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I've done that. I've actually had direct hires in the past, just direct hire to like do evals and like for the summer, which is, yeah. So, okay. Now we only have like 1 minute. So was there anything else that you wanted to get in your 1 minute? Cause I had 1,400 questions. I'm so sorry.
I feel like we covered a lot. I feel like there's still a lot of more information out there that we didn't get to touch on, but I really appreciate you having me on today. It's really, an honor to be here. I was looking at the First Bite website and scrolling through some of those older episodes, and, I saw a lot of familiar faces and names. I know you just spoke with Jill Eversman. Looks like you did some ASL, and got to give Steven a shout out. I'm a guitar guy, so speech and language songs is about the coolest thing I've seen lately in our world. And also Jen and Patty up from VA, Tots and Teens Therapy. Good people, good friends of ours, and I appreciate you including me with some of these folks.
Absolutely. This has been such a blessing because, folks behind the scenes, I put a prayer over every single episode that his message is supposed to be out there because somebody needs to hear whatever it is that we cover. And so this is just an amazing folks have been brought our way to do this, including amazing folks that keep roses and mop buckets on Valentine's Day. So,
we got several mop buckets. You guys are welcome.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Okay. So real quick, one more time, what is your email address in case somebody has a question?
Sure. It's Morgan, MORGAN at elevation, ELEVATION healthcare.com.
Perfect. Okay. So there it is. So if you want to reach out to Morgan, and he is on Elevations on LinkedIn, and don't y'all have a Facebook page? Y'all have a Facebook
LinkedIn,
page.
Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Personally, I have a personal LinkedIn account as well. Pretty active on there. That's a great way to get a hold of me. But email is good. And if you come across, our website, phone numbers are listed as well. As a recruiter, my information is all over the place. So I'm pretty easy
That's right. Perfect. Okay. Well, hold on 1 second so I can switch over to questions. Okay. Sure.
Feeding Matters guides system-wide changes by uniting caregivers, professionals, and community partners under the Pediatric Feeding Disorder Alliance. So what is this alliance? The Alliance is an open access collaborative community focused on achieving strategic goals within 3 focus areas: education, advocacy, and research. So who is the Alliance? It's you. The Alliance is open to any person passionate about improving care for children with a pediatric feeding disorder. To date, 187 professionals, caregivers, and partners have joined the Alliance. You can join today by visiting the Feeding Matters website at www.feedingmatters.org. Click on PFD Alliance tab and sign up today. Change is possible when we work together.
That's a wrap, folks. Once again, thank you for listening to First Bite, fed, fun, and functional. I'm your humble but yet sassy host, Michelle Dawson, the All Things Peds SLP. This podcast is part of a course offered for continuing education through speechtherapypd.com. Please check out the website if you'd like to learn more about CEU opportunities for this episode, as well as the ones that are archived. And as always, remember, feed your mind, feed your soul, be kind, and feed those babies.